So in today's show, we are going to talk about evolving identities. Welcome to the Rise to Thrive show. I am your host, James Boardman. And if you are coming through, please do let me know. This time I hope you can hear me. Apologies for Monday's Rise to Thrive. I think so much water had got into my microphone where I've been running that you didn't hear me very well. So hopefully you'll hear me on this one okay. When I left the military in September 2011, God, that's 10 years ago now, I went through an identity crisis. When I left the Royal Marines, I was Sergeant James Boardman. And I had been in the military nearly just practically shy of 9 years. And I then went into work at a college. And I was teaching public services, outdoor education and sports. But what was happening was that I left the military on the Friday. And on the Monday, I was teaching in a college. So my transition to a different way of life was 48 hours. Now, I was naive enough to think, fucking hell, I can easily do this. I can just snap and slip into this way of life. And I was wrong. The confliction of identity was the root cause of what pretty much started my downfall, my downward spiral into the rut. And I was trying to be Sergeant James Boardman within an environment where Sergeant James Boardman didn't belong. And what I mean by that is that I wasn't around the guys. It wasn't the same mentality. I couldn't live the same lifestyle. I didn't earn the same wage, so we were under money pressures. So when I left the Marines, I knew what my purpose was. I knew who I was. I knew what I was proud of. I knew what I was trying to achieve in life in the military. And then when I came out, everything that was a part of my identity was no more. And I was struggling to find out who I was, what I wanted, what my values were, what my principles were, where I was going. And I suddenly had this confliction of trying to figure out who I was. And in the first 3 years of coming out of the military, like a lot of people know my story, I didn't really know where I was going or what I was doing. I was making bad decisions. And in the first 6 months, I was dealing with the trauma of having left. And it was almost like a post-trauma of having to suddenly deal with real life, like a new way of living, a new mentality. And it was very, very difficult to do. And we often face that. Men that I work with face that. Where we are in our 20s and we're young and single and free, and then suddenly we meet somebody, then suddenly we're getting a mortgage, so there's starting to be responsibilities, then there's children, then there's marriage, and then suddenly you end up 35 and 36, and then you're suddenly feeling a little bit lost. You're evolving through life, but then you hit your 40s, and then you're really lost because the kids are starting to grow up. And maybe you're growing distance from your partner and you don't really know who you are, and you're coming distance from your partner because you don't know who you are. So you don't open up and you don't communicate. And then all of a sudden you get to a point in your life and you just look in the mirror and go, who the fuck are you? Like, who are you? Like, what do you stand for? What are you trying to achieve here? And it's a really hard moment, and I think many men ignore it. Many men just fucking ignore it. When we do the 5-day challenge, it really opens up people's eyes to understanding themselves a little bit more in terms of identity. And it allows them to identify with themselves a little bit more about actually maybe the direction they want to go in life, about where they want to be. And then when we do the 28-day program, that literally rewires people's brains to have much more clarity in terms of where they are and who they are within that point of time. And the way that we figure out who we are is by actually having a process of some sort. The reason that the 5-day works so well, and the reason that the 28-day works even better, is that there is a structured process that allows you to unravel an identity that is waiting to come out. It's bursting at the seams to come out, and every single man has this. There is a much better way of living than the way that you're living now. And when we unravel that, when we face the process, when we show up at 1%, when we find our mission, what we do is we learn more about ourselves. We build character, we build values, we build principles. We become more certain about who we are and what we want to achieve. Now, obviously, we've all been there, and everyone's gone through. A lot of men drink to hide that. A lot of people eat shit. A lot of people take drugs. A lot of people fucking gamble. Or they do a lot of negative stuff that really just halts the process of actually dealing with the identity crisis. And for me, the identity, when we figure out who we are, when we know what we want and why we want it, we suddenly create clarity and certainty. And I think those two things are very important when it comes to identity. When I left, I had so much uncertainty. I had zero clarity in the direction I was going. I was firefighting life. I was on the hamster wheel of doom. And it didn't serve me at all until I went into entrepreneurship. And that's when I really rediscovered myself in my first business. And I've never really looked back, and I have consistently evolved. Each year I evolve. And I can feel that my principles and my values and my character gets stronger each year and gets better. When I look back at myself last year, I think, okay, I'm like, this year I feel more resilient than I ever have in my life. And maybe that's because of the COVID thing. But I think in terms of you and your identity and where you want to go, I think it's maybe time to have a look at it and start focusing on it. I know that a lot of guys in my mastermind are starting to really understand themselves better, which is a really great way to connect with your identity. But I guess I just wanted to raise this because I think it's really important to know, for me, where it starts, what we got to look at. It's all right to not really know where you are right now, but it's not all right to stay in that position. And I just want to encourage you to maybe start a process or start looking at yourself and start opening up to yourself in terms of where do you want to go and why. Maybe just start with answering those two questions and then evolving as you go. I hope that helps. Different type of tone and scene, but I really want you to win. And I think for you to win, you've got to know what you need to do to win. You've got to know who you've got to be and be yourself. Always be true to your character. All right, guys, have a good day. Look at these two sitting obediently. Don't look at me. See you later.